Well, the root word of shame is skim, which means to hide. So, right? So we want to hide. We don't want to be seen. And the ages of 18 to 24 are when also a woman's most primed to enter into a trauma bond, which kind of makes sense, right? Young and they're uneducated. And again, we've been fed this myth of romantic love, right? That someday my prince is going to come. Shame is a big piece of it because society, even today, even if we hear about rape or domestic violence, we're so quick to really question the victim. Really sure she's telling the truth. Think she has an ulterior motive, which nobody wants to be abused.
Hello, and welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickle, and today we have Dr. Nadine Macaluso, also known affectionately as Dr. Nay. I am really excited about having her here today and the conversation we're going to have. I'll quickly read her bio, and then we'll get into her story, and we'll also talk about trauma bonding and probably a little bit about narcissistic relationships as well. So, affectionately known as Dr. Nay, Dr. Nadine Macaluso is a therapist specializing in trauma healing and personal transformation. Her life inspired the character Naomi Belford in The Wolf of Wall Street. After overcoming personal challenges, she earned a master's in counseling and a PhD in somatic psychotherapy. Wow. Dr. Macaluso helps individuals recover from trauma bonds, CPTSD, and shame. Whew. She is also the author of Run Like Hell, a therapist's guide to recognizing, escaping, and healing from trauma bonds. Thank you, Dr. Nay, for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I'm very excited for our conversation.
I am too. It's so important. And I feel like when it comes to trauma bonding, I see so much of that out there. And I also see a lot of people needing help with it and just not as much information out there that needs to be to help people through that. And I had a trauma bond. I didn't realize it until actually I started watching your videos on TikTok, and then I'm like, oh, guess what? I had one
That's
too.
what it
Not as
is.
intense as yours, but thank you
Yeah.
for being here. And why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your story?
Yeah, so my story, I was born, I mean, I was actually born in England, but I grew up in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And so I was raised by a single mother who was obsessed with psychology. And so I was very lucky because she was always talking to me about my feelings. And
Ooh,
I was,
nice.
yeah, she was reading Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud in the 70s. So I was very exposed to psychology at a young age, and the seeds were planted there, right? Unbeknownst to me at the time. And I loved school. I was a good student, but I got to an age where I realized, hey, I need money, right? We need money to live. And living close to adjacent to New York City, very expensive city. A lot of people would say to me, do you want to model? Do you want to model? And my mother was dead set against it. She did not want me to do that. But I was like, hey, mom, I got to make money. So I was modeling in New York City in the late 80s, which was a very fun time in New York City. Okay.
Yeah.
Studio 54, that was when Madonna came on the scene. And I was living with my best friend in Brooklyn Heights, and I was dating this man. And he said to me, this young man, he said, we were in the Hamptons, because that's what you do when you summer in this, and when you live in New York City, you summer in the Hamptons if you can. And he said, there's this party. Why don't we go to this party? And I said, okay. He said, it's a really nice house on the beach. So we show up at this party. And little did I know, when I was walking into that house, that would change the course of my life. Because at that party, as the movie The Wolf of Wall Street depicts, was my ex-husband, Jordan Belfort. And I went to the party. I left very quickly because they all seemed very strange. I didn't know they were all on Quaaludes at the
Oh.
time. Okay, so I didn't know that. And then somebody, as the movie shows, did expose themselves to me. And I was young, I was 22 at the time. I felt so much shame, as
Mm.
victims do, right? We
Mm-hmm.
feel uncomfortable. And so I ran out and I thought never to see those people again. But I guess my ex-husband thought differently and he pursued me and got me to go out with him.
Mm-hmm.
Many months later.
Many months later. Yeah, you were really young and easily yeah, I could see that happening. And we get into these strange situations, especially when we're young like that. We don't know what to do. We know something's off, but it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what
Yeah,
to do.
yeah. And so I left. And then and then what happened is that he actually made a friend in the stock market $15,000 to get her to go to meet him. And I had no idea. She was like, just go out with him, just go out to dinner with me. Then she said, that guy Jordan's going to come. I said, oh, that's so strange. Why is he coming? Isn't he married? You know, and she goes, what do you care? I said, I don't care. I just think it's strange. So he had orchestrated a meeting and I had no idea. And we met, and I'm from Brooklyn. He's from Queens. We knew a lot of the same people. And of course, he was magnanimous and charming. And then I realized, okay, maybe this guy likes me. But then again, I didn't see him for about maybe 5 more months. I was traveling to Chicago to model. My Miller Lite commercial had just come out. So I was really busy in my own life. And then we bumped into each other again at a gym in New York City. And as they say, the rest is
Sparks.
history. Yeah,
Sparks flew.
sparks flew. Yeah.
So then what happened after that?
So we went on our date, and it was a great, of course, first date. And we really, as a trauma bond starts, fast and furious,
Yeah.
intense, very passionate, right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the love bombing and
All the love bombing.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sending me Bulgari watches, filling my house up with, so many flowers I couldn't walk in. I mean, this was over the
Wow.
top.
Yeah.
This was like late 80s, early 90s love bombing, like Pretty Women, the movie Wall Street, right? When all of that was very in the zeitgeist. And
What were you thinking when he was sending you all these gifts? What were you thinking? Because you were still so young, right?
part of me was like, this is fabulous,
Right.
right? Because it was so fun. And then part of me was like, so I think there was a bit of an internal conflict. Like I certainly enjoyed it, but
Sure.
even to me, it felt like a lot back then.
Yeah. 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 So how long did you guys date before you married him?
So that's the thing, just like a trauma bond, 6 months, he asked me to
Yep.
get engaged. 6 months later, we were married. And there were so many signs that I didn't understand, because
Yeah.
a trauma bond at the bottom of it is control. The person wants power and control over
Mm-hmm.
you, right? So they use coercive control. And he started that right from the beginning. Again, I didn't know what that was, but he was like,
Yeah.
we need to get married. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to get married. I'm young. He's like, no, I'm not going to marry you. I'm not going to date you if you won't marry me. So there was already the domination and
Mm-hmm.
the intimidation, but I just thought, oh, I would fight back because I am from Brooklyn. But then I would just be like, oh, he just loves me so much.
Yes. Yeah. We kind of excuse it. And again, we have to remember you were so young, right? And we're
Yes.
easily impressed. And this man loves me. This man likes me. Look at all the good stuff that he's doing for me.
Right.
Of course it's good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you don't have life experiences under your belt either.
No.
So this right now is kind of your normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just thought, oh God, he just loves me so much, And I was raised in this myth of, romantic love, the Disney, someday my prince is going to come and save me. And I was like, here's my prince.
You're right. Exactly. Why wouldn't you think that? Exactly.
I couldn't have been any more wrong. But I thought that that's what was happening.
Did you along the way, so I asked you a minute ago, like what you thought of all these gifts that he was pouring upon you, but did your intuition while you were dating him this short amount of time, did it give you any indications at all and you just kind of dismissed it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have a funny social media post that went crazy viral where I talk about how we got engaged. And it's a very short clip, but we got engaged in front of my favorite fast food restaurant in Brooklyn, called Rolling Roaster. Shout out if anybody's listening. And in his white Ferrari Testarossa, and he gave me this big 5 carat emerald diamond.
Oh my gosh.
And he said to me, will you marry me? And of course I said yes, but inside my gut literally went, uh-oh. It literally said, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
But of course I didn't listen to it. I pressed it
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Thought, what does my gut know? What does my gut know?
Yeah. Well, my second husband, who was a full-on narcissist, didn't see it. It started with me being told, don't even talk to him. My intuition was saying, don't even talk to him. I talked to him. Don't date him. I dated him. Don't marry him. I married him. I heard it, and I completely ignored it.
Yeah, and I think, especially as women and especially as a young woman, we're not really taught to connect to our own power.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of why I do this work, right? I want young women to know that it's okay to connect to their body and listen to it because it
Exactly.
really is very important to listen to that. But I did not. I grabbed that 5 carat diamond and off we went.
So tell us about the marriage and how it went. Did it change? Because for me, he changed as soon as we got married and I moved into the house. Then that's when he really immediately started to show his true colors.
Yeah, I think Jordan actually started to show his true colors right away, with the dominating, with the intimidation about the dating. Then he wanted me to have kids. I'm not going to marry you if you don't have kids, right? So there was always this like moving the goalposts
Mm-hmm.
and making me go against my own wants, desires, and needs. And so there was initially, right from the get-go, this message of you have to sacrifice yourself to stay attached to this person,
Yep.
keep this love. And so, the marriage ensued. We had a big fight the night before our wedding because I was pregnant, even though I had a miscarriage afterwards. And he was doing tons of drugs. And I just was like,
Ooh.
wait, you wanted me to have kids and get married and you have it all. And now you can't speak. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was outraged, but of course I had, 220 people that had just flown to the island to watch me to get married. And again, right, pushing myself aside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back then I should have said no, but I mean, I'm glad I didn't because I have 2 beautiful kids. So, that it all worked out. But at that moment, that was the moment to leave. And so the relationship just started out with like a trauma bond with the real big highs and the real low lows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And constantly chasing that next thing that will make them happy, right?
Right.
Constantly, there's constant criticism and, well, if you would have just done this, and then
Right.
when you go and do that, then they shift again.
Right. Then there's always the other shape shifting constantly. Yeah. So then a year later I'm married and again, there were a lot of fun parts, of course, right? Nobody
Sure.
stays with somebody because it's all bad. That's the thing about a trauma bond is there's that intermittent reinforcement
Yep.
where 70% of the time they're cruel, controlling, and mean, but 30% they're generous, kind, and helpful. And
Right.
those highs and lows are so extreme that they create such extreme feelings inside of us, and that's actually what creates the bond. So we had a lot of that. We had a lot of fun with friends. I did feel very madly in love with him, but it was all I had to do whatever he wanted me to do.
Right. In order for it to be.
Yeah, and the way I describe this person in the trauma bond as a narcissistic pathological lover is that this person will use, harm, exploit, and betray you to get their needs met for money, power, pleasure, and status.
100%.
And that's what it was like. All about his need fulfillment.
Oh, yeah. I can so relate to that. I was only in my narcissistic marriage just over a year and a half, the second one.
Oh, that wasn't long at all. Good for you.
Yeah, well, unfortunately passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, and what was interesting is at the time, I didn't realize it was not, I didn't know the term narcissist. Like I didn't realize it, but I had healed enough from my first marriage that I thought, okay, this behavior is crazy. Like
Yeah,
this is weird. And I would even look at him and say, what the F is wrong with you?
yeah,
It was just so over the top. And I realized that there was enough things that he was accusing me of that were pretty wild that I went, okay, I'm going to plan on leaving. And so I was literally planning on saving my money. I was willing to completely start over and leave with only my clothes and my animals. And that was it. And I don't care. I was going to go rent a room and completely start over because that would have been better than living in what I lived in.
that's right. And that's when you know you're in a trauma bond, when you're just ready to just leave everything and start over because living with this person is so horrible and painful and you just have to lose yourself to stay connected to them.
Hey, if you're ready to go deeper in your healing journey, join our 6-week workshop. Sign up today at womenschildhoodabusehealingworkshop.com or click on the link below. I'd love to see you there and help you on your healing journey. Yeah, and the good times don't make up for the bad
They
times
don't.
anymore. It seems like it's all bad. So let's give a definition of trauma bond. What is that so that our audience gets a clear
Yeah, so
definition?
it's an it's a connection between two emotionally attached people, and it can be between, I write about it in my book Run Like Hell, between intimate lovers. It can be between a boss and an employee. It can be between friends. But what for it to be a trauma bond, it has to have a few things. The one of the people, usually the pathological perpetrator, wants power and control over the other person, right? The other person is not allowed to have their own independence, their own will. They're not allowed to be their own person. The second thing is usually there's a power imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
So people can get power because you love them. People can get power because they have more resources. People can get power if they're dominating and threatening, right? Which happens in my relationship. And then the second thing is what we just mentioned. The third thing is the intermittent reinforcement, where they're good and bad. They're
Mm-hmm.
extraordinarily kind and extraordinarily cruel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
I
those things are the components of a trauma bond.
and I recognize now that I've done a lot of healing and I look back and I look at my timeline and I can understand why I ended up in narcissistic. I had a narcissistic mother and brother, but
Yeah.
also that chaos that, it was my normal, it was, okay,
Yes.
my mom was wonderful and loving and kind and then just vicious and mean. And, I took that into all my relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that can happen. I mean, not all women who end up in trauma bonds have had, those parental experiences. I did not. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of times it can just, but the way I say it is that anybody and everybody can fall for a con man. Some
Yeah.
people have developmental trauma. Some people, like me, in my book, I write about certain personality traits that make a woman more susceptible, and it's high agreeableness and conscientiousness. So if you're loyal and tolerant and have integrity and very driven, those are great qualities, but not when you're in a trauma bond because they get weaponized.
Mm. Yes. And that's what keeps us connected with them is that loyalty and that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And so there are, the way I work in my practice is that when a woman comes to me, I always say, okay, let's learn about your personality traits. Let's learn about your attachment patterns. Let's learn about your early childhood. So then we have a map of her personality
Mm-hmm.
structure to help her now untangle herself and heal from this trauma bond. But everybody, different backgrounds, different personality types, different attachment patterns end up in trauma bonds.
I'm so glad you said that because I thought it would just be somebody who's had some kind of trauma in their background because I know with narcissists, because your ex was a narcissist, right?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
Um, it seems like us empaths are drawn to narcissists and narcissists are drawn to the empaths. And a lot of times, I mean, what I've experienced and what I've seen is that most of the time it has been with somebody who's had some kind of trauma in their past. But I'm glad that you mentioned that it can be anybody. You don't have to have the trauma in your past.
And actually, when you think about it, I didn't grow up in a house where there was any yelling. So I
Mm.
didn't even know a person like this could exist.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what? I had no point of reference for it. So
Yeah.
that's the thing about the trauma bond is that you don't see them coming.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's so true. I mean, it was the same thing with my late husband. I just didn't see it coming. He was this nice guy. He was responsible. He was all these things that kind of checked off my
Right.
list, And actually, I was the one, if you want to say, pursued him. I saw him. I was out dancing, and I saw him, and I thought, oh, what a nice guy, and I just wanted to talk to him, right? And right away, my intuition said, stop,
I know,
but I
but you
didn't.
didn't listen. Yeah. No, and it's right. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book too, was to break the stigma of the victim, because we're always like, why do you stay? What's wrong with that? You're a drug
Yes.
addict, you're codependent, you have learned helplessness. And so my book really debunks all of that old way of thinking and says, no, why don't we ask, why does he do that?
Thank
Right.
you.
Yeah. And so I really wanted to make that a point because, when I left my ex, because he had such a severe addiction and as depicted in the movie, everybody just was like, you're codependent and you're a drug addict. And I remember thinking to myself, I I think there's a lot more than that going on.
Yeah,
But back all those years ago, 25 years ago, people didn't educate me, or people didn't know or have the words.
we didn't know about trauma and all of the
Right.
things that we know now, which is, I mean, I know that's what really slowed down my healing process because I started it at 19. I mean, I
Okay.
just remember thinking something isn't right. Like, I didn't realize it was pain that I was trying to get out of me, but I knew something wasn't right. So I went on my healing journey then, and I did a lot on my own because there wasn't the trauma therapy, there wasn't the modalities that are out there now that are helping, which is wonderful that we can
Right.
overcome this. We don't have to live with it. We
That's
can
right.
manage it. But yeah, it was a long journey because of that. And what's so great now is there is stuff out there, and that's the number one reason why I do my podcast. And I don't charge anybody to be on here because I want to get this information out there to help people, because we tend to, there's this statistic out there that um, on average, women who are sexually abused are between the ages of 13 and 17, and they don't share that experience for 4 decades. That poor woman suffers for 4 decades before she shares it. And I know from my experience, it's true with a lot of abuse that shame, and I know that's one of your areas of specialty, just shuts your voice down. Hey, if you're ready to go deeper in your healing journey, join our 6-week workshop. Sign up today at womenschildhoodabushealingworkshop.com or click on the link below. I'd love to see you there and help you on your healing journey.
Yes, well, the root word of shame is skim, which means to hide.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
So we want to hide. We don't want to be seen. And the ages of 18 to 24 are when also a woman's most primed to enter into a trauma bond, which kind of makes sense, right? Young and they're uneducated, and again, we've been fed this myth of
Naive.
love, right? That someday my prince is going to come.
Mm-hmm.
So shame is a big piece of it because society, even today, even if we hear about rape or domestic violence, we're so quick to really question the victim. Really
Yes.
sure she's telling the truth. Think she has an ulterior motive, which nobody wants to be abused,
No,
you
no.
know? And so that's really a main theme throughout my book of educating the victim and empowering them,
Mm-hmm.
saying to them, if somebody's mean and cruel to you and they have the intention to abuse you, that's not your fault. Now it's your
Exactly.
responsibility to heal, to get out and heal, which
Right.
is challenging when you're in a trauma bond, but it's not your fault. Abuse is always the fault of the abuser.
Right, right. I'm so glad you touch on that because so often we hear, I don't understand why you don't just leave him. Just leave him. What's the big deal? Why do you keep going back to him? And until you've been in a narcissistic relationship, you have no idea the
No.
craziness that goes on in there.
Yeah, and that brings me to a point of why people stay is one of the symptoms that a victim has is cognitive dissonance.
Mm,
And so cognitive dissonance is the mental confusion or discomfort that you feel when you're trying to reconcile two conflicting beliefs. And so when you think about it, when you first meet this perpetrator, they're Romeo. I call them Romeo. They're charismatic, they're loving, they're everything you could imagine a partner could be. Then over time, the mask falls and Dirty John emerges. And this is when the cruel, controlling, betraying, lying person emerges. And so this person has two different masks.
hmm.
And so what happens is you're always asking, is he good? Is he bad?
Yeah,
Am I crazy? Is he crazy?
yeah.
Relationship good or bad? And so the cognitive dissonance is the glue that keeps us stuck.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because you're always walking around on eggshells
Right.
and you're assessing the situation. Oh, he's in a good mood. Okay, good. I can
Exactly.
rem- I can remember I was so mad at him one time, and this is terrible. And I was sitting on the bed, and he walked by the bedroom window, and I'm like visualizing it right now as he's walking by, and just like hating him,
Yeah.
hating him, and that was so hard because I loved him too.
That's it. That's the cognitive dissonance right there. And it's so when you think about it, just like to say that, I hate somebody I love.
Yeah,
How confusing is that? And then you throw in children, you throw in financial
yeah.
dependency, you throw in you've been with them a long time, they've been
Mm-hmm.
keeping you down, you don't have any self-esteem. We see why it's so complicated to
It
leave.
is. What was your final straw?
So I had three.
Oh, yeah.
Mine, Because mine was very complicated relationship. So I had three. The first one was I said to my ex, you have to get sober. If you don't get sober, I'm leaving you. I'm not going to sit here and watch you kill yourself. And so he went crazy and threw my clothing and jewelry and put them in the fireplace and lit them on fire and was screaming at me. And I went into my closet and I leaned against it and I said, God, give me the strength to do this. And I did, but what happened was that he was being so crazy and rageful, and he said he was going to take my daughter to so what happened, I went to my mother's house for the night. My children were there with my housekeeper and nanny. I knew they were safe. And I came back ready to like do what I need to do. But my mother was so smart. She said, when you go home, go call the police and tell them you're going home to a domestic violence situation. So I did. And when I got there, he said to me, he's high in the living room on cocaine, running a meeting, like nothing's wrong, And he said, I'm taking our daughter to Florida. And I was like, yeah, right. I mean, you're not screwing with my kids, right?
Yeah.
So he tries to take her, and I dial 911 and call the police. I didn't even have time to talk. Luckily, my mother had said that, but he had kicked me down the stairs.
Oh.
And luckily, I was super strong because I was 31 back then, and I was able to stop him from taking her. And the police came and he got arrested. So my one of my last straws was when, and they show that in the movie, that scene. It's a little different chronologically. So that physical violence, I mean, it could have killed me, right? It could
Yeah.
have my neck. And, there is something, even though coercive control is like death by 1,000 cuts, physical violence, it does just say to us, this is wrong. I wish it didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to get to that, but it does. And then the second one was when I told him all about it, because he did get sober, how hard it was for me, all the abuse and the drug addiction. And he looked at me and goes, it wasn't that bad. And I didn't know the word
Ooh.
callousness back then because I must have been
Yeah.
21. And something inside of me closed. And I said, that's it. Now, I didn't know people like that can't have a more sympathy or compassion. So that was my second one. And then my third one, he got arrested so I could
Mm-hmm.
leave.
Yeah.
And he had an ankle bracelet. And I knew he couldn't harm me anymore. He was the government's problem. Now we had to deal with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I knew I could leave, and I left.
Yeah. Thank God. Thank
Yeah,
God.
yeah, and I left. And so I think I was 31 by that time, or 30. I can't recall. But not, that was a while ago. But yeah, and I just said, I knew that was his ankle bracelet was like my freedom because
Yeah, it really was an answer to a prayer, wasn't it?
it really was. It really was. And, we get along fine now and our kids are great. So it all worked out. But that was very hairy there for a while.
And then let's talk a little about your healing, because that is a whole nother story, right?
Yeah.
After you get out of this situation, it's not like, okay, life is great now. I don't have this problem anymore. No, there's a
No.
whole,
Yeah, I had been in therapy since I met him. So I put myself right into therapy right when I met him because I knew like this was too much for me. And then after I left him, I went to a place called the Karen Foundation, where they have a program called Breakthrough, where for 5 days they just break you down and you work on yourself.
oh,
And I learned that I could say no. I learned what boundaries were. Because again, you have to remember this was 25 years ago, right?
yeah,
So I didn't know I could say no. I didn't know I could have boundaries. I mean, these were
yeah.
all like new terms. And so that really began the foundation for my new life. And about a year and a half later, I met my current husband, who I'm with now for 25 years. And he lived in California. And my children and I would move to California to have a brand new start. And we did. And and then what happened? And then around a few years later, so now I'm like around 38, I decided I'm going to go back to school to be a therapist.
That's
And
amazing.
the therapy had saved my life. And so I get my master's and get my doctorate. And while I'm doing that, now here I was, I thought I started all over in California. My ex-husband writes a book, The Wolf of Wall Street, and it gets made. I mean, you have to laugh. And gets made into this movie, The Wolf of Wall Street.
And here
And
we are.
and here we are. And I had many feelings around it. I did a lot of therapy around it. I did dream therapy around it. And then one day I said, you know what, Nadine,
Mm,
this is bigger than you. and you need to surrender.
Mm.
And I surrendered, and the movie came out, and I really didn't say much about it. I had nothing to say. Then once I opened my practice, I was like, all these bright, smart, amazing, beautiful women are coming in trauma bonded. Like, what's happening? And so I went back to the research, and I decided to make it my specialty. And then I was like, wait, I have the most misogynistic movie to exploit. What a gift from God or goddess.
I love it. I love it.
And I mean, I wish I could tell you, Lisa, like I had some big plan. You know what I mean? Like I saw my life, this is the way it was going to work out. No, it just unfolded the way it was supposed to. And
Oh,
I
that's
offer that
beautiful.
to people, like just to keep showing up and doing the work and then surrender. Keep
Hmm.
up and doing the work and surrender.
The surrendering is hard.
Oh,
Whew.
I mean,
I
had so
remember.
many bad things I had to.
I remember when I had to surrender control, and I
That
was
was,
livid. I was livid. I can tell you exactly where I was sitting, exactly what time it was. Like it was so profound to me, and I was livid when I realized I didn't have control over everything. I stood up, I started screaming. Nobody was home, thank God. I started screaming. I was so angry. And then I stopped and I was like, "Oh, no, that's actually liberating. I don't have to control everybody else now. I just have to control this. And this is a lot right here."
that's right. That's enough. That's enough. And so, that was the whole thing with the movie. I was like, oh, like I'm going to control Martin Scorsese and Paramount Pictures.
Oh,
I
good
didn't think
luck.
so, right? So I just surrendered. And then, I went to see the movie. I got a private screening with my husband, and that was surreal. Like, okay, this is wild. My life was this.
Did you get triggered?
I really didn't. My life was
Good.
a ridiculous Greek tragedy, and I didn't because I'd done so much work on myself.
Yeah.
And, and the movie was fine. Like, if it would have portrayed me incorrectly or very poorly, I think I would have been very upset.
Yeah.
Then I might have sued, but it didn't. And I just looked like this young girl who fell in love, who loved her kids, who was trying to keep up with this crazy person. I mean, listen, I never threw water in his face like they showed. A
Mm.
lot of it I did
They
not
got to put
do.
the drama in.
Yeah, and that's okay. And really, I was mostly concerned with my kids. How is it going to affect them? And they were
Yeah.
fine because we had talked about all this for years. So this was no surprise to them. So
That's
I
good.
was like, okay, you know what? It portrays me fine. Life goes on. And that was it.
Wow. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. I can't even imagine having part of my life on the screen like that. I mean, I guess I put my life out here now, but it's not up on the big screen. I can't even imagine doing that. And I was thinking when I asked you the question about the triggering, and I had a feeling you were going to answer exactly the way you did, and that you didn't get triggered because of your healing, and that's
Yeah.
something that's so empowering. I want to share with the listeners is that you can get to the point where even if you do get triggered, you can manage it. It doesn't consume you and take over, like it used to. When I think back of times when I would get triggered and I would just go from 0 to 100, and then
Right.
the colossal mess that I had to clean up afterwards was no fun. But that's
Yeah.
really empowering that you were able to go and watch
Yeah.
this thing and your life's up on the screen and it's not triggering.
And I say that often to people is that that's one of the real gifts of getting older that I don't think we talk about enough.
True.
Right? That, if you've done the work and as you get older, you're not triggered constantly and not everything affects you in the way that it did. You're like, okay. Like, you feel it like a bamboo and then you come back to center. You feel it and you come back to center.
Right.
And that's a beautiful gift of getting older after you've done the work.
Really, I mean, you learn to pick your battles, right? Is this one
Yeah,
that it's not important. It's just not that important. You learn to conserve your energy and use it in the places that you need to and
right.
withhold it in places you don't need to.
That's right. And you don't personalize,
Yeah, that's a big one.
right?
That's a big one.
Yeah, I don't personalize. And, even in social media now, because, my platforms are pretty big and I really don't get a lot of trolls, which is a miracle. But
Wow, that's good.
I know, well, if I do, sometimes I just heart it, or I just block and delete. Like, it's just no big deal. I don't
Yeah.
get into like a war with them, you know.
Yeah, no, no, no. Again, it's picking your battles. Is it worth getting it? My thing is when I get those, I just kind of like, I feel sorry for them because that's not a good place where they're at. That they feel that they've got to get on social media and try to be kind of
Right.
abusive towards people. That they're not in a good place. That's not a happy life.
And then I'll look at them and they have one follower and zero posts. I'm like, oh,
It's a troll.
all right.
It's a troll.
Yeah, it's a troll. Like you're not willing to put yourself out there. But that really is a gift of getting older and of course doing all this work. And that doesn't mean that life is perfect because life always throws things our way. Health, death, just tragic,
Taxes.
yeah, we're just living,
Yeah.
But you really can build resilience.
Right. Not everything is dramatic. Like,
That's right.
I was when I was in survival mode, anything that would happen, I would go over the top, right? Because I was in survival mode and I was constantly on alert. And so something would happen, I would take it so over the top. And it's such a relief not to do that. Such a relief. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions about this episode or really anything that has to do with trauma. So you can comment below or you can reach out to me at asklisatickle@gmail.com. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you.
It
So
feels.
with our listeners on the trauma bond, what do you suggest to them once they recognize okay, I am in a trauma bond. What do you suggest that they do next?
Yeah, so, if you're listening to this and you realize you're in a trauma bond, the first thing is you have to have radical acceptance. Don't deny,
Hmm.
don't rationalize it, don't ignore it. Just the first step is acceptance and then reach out to the helpers. Read my book, listen to podcasts, find a therapist, find a group, get educated because when you're in a trauma bond, your mind is not your own. They have mind control.
Yep.
So you have to really educate yourself so you can start to really see what's happening. And then behind the scenes, plan a safe escape.
Yeah.
Get a credit card in your name, make sure you have a bank account, get all your finances in order, get a lawyer if need be, get all your documents. If you don't have money, I always say women go to Target and get gift cards for a year.
Oh,
You really have to plan because if the person that wants power and control over you loses it, they're not going to be happy.
no, something really bad could happen. You definitely need to protect yourself. And that's why, I mean, my late husband never physically abused me,
Yeah.
but there comes those times when they lose it and anything can happen.
Anything can
Anything
happen.
can happen.
Anything. And so you want to really, because the research shows that the most dangerous time for a victim is when they're going to leave.
Yep.
And it takes people 4 to 7 attempts. So, if you keep attempting, don't give up. But the best thing is don't ever let them see you coming.
Ooh, yeah.
You have to plan, like I always say now, you have to wear the mask. You have to plan behind the scenes.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing. I was literally going to even have all the legal paperwork done, everything, and then lay the paperwork down and move
That's right.
out.
That's
And
right.
not
You.
and literally I was going to give him no reason to contact me.
Correct. Correct. Because
I don't owe
if
you
you
any
have,
money. I
yeah,
don't want anything. I just
right.
want my clothes. If you want the clothes, you can have them. I don't care. I'll start over.
Yeah, right. Right. And if if you don't have children, you can go no contact. When you do have children, it's much more challenging. But then, just read about parallel parenting. There are ways to do it. And I'm not saying it's easy, but there are ways to do it.
Yeah, you definitely need a support system around you. I have someone I'm working with right now that wants to get out of a narcissistic marriage. And, she knows that first she needs to get into trauma therapy and she's getting into that and that she needs to talk to an attorney because she needs to understand her legal rights and because again, it's so confusing being in these narcissistic relationships. And then when it comes to the legal side of it, if you don't have any experience,
Yeah.
it can be really scary. So you do need to have your support system. You need your therapist, you need your family, your friends, and you need a good attorney.
Yeah. And, usually in a trauma bond, one of the things, of course, of control is isolation.
Yeah.
They like
Oh,
to
yeah.
isolate. So it's really important that you start to build that community back up.
Exactly. Yeah, you do need, yeah, that is so true. he tried that on me. He actually tried, well, his real fatal mistake with me was he tried to get between me and my son, and
Oh,
that
forget.
was it.
Right, that's it.
You can mess with me, but you do not mess with my
Game
son.
over. Yeah,
Yeah, so that was the final straw for me.
yeah.
Um, and so, okay, and what about like going to shelters? Do you think that
Oh,
that in
yeah. I mean, there are shelters, and even if you don't want to, even if you don't have to live in a shelter, you can go to a shelter and they will help you plan your escape.
yeah,
And
there's lots of resources.
there's a lots of resources, and I even just started a trauma bond recovery group, an online recovery group for women, or even if you're still trapped in a trauma bond, that's really inexpensive. It's like $29.99 a month, and we have support groups, and I have a course. My book is there in a course, in an online course, and there's all
Ooh,
women to talk to, and we do lives with experts because you feel crazy. They make you feel crazy. They blame you for
mm-hmm.
everything. And so it's really important to find a great, safe place where you can be
Yes.
supported.
Right. And it's interesting when we start connecting with others and we hear their stories and they're parallel to our stories. And then all of a sudden you realize I'm not crazy, they're crazy.
Exactly, exactly. And seeing these women connect and support each other in this community
Yeah.
is so beautiful because, you know, not everybody can afford therapy, right? Some therapy can be very expensive. And I also tell people when I trained to be a therapist, I had to do 3,000 hours at $5 an hour. Look for a therapist that's in training.
Oh
Right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, if you can't afford a therapist that's been, you know, in practice for 15 years like me, then so there are ways to skin this cat.
That's so true. I know, and insurance makes it really difficult for you guys as well. I know that there's my therapist, yeah, she rolls her eyes too, and she's so frustrated with the whole insurance, and so that makes it really difficult too.
Yeah,
We really need to work on that and get that.
we do. And so that's why I started my community because it really democratizes all this help and gets it into their hands.
So tell us about that. What is the name of the group, and how could
So it's
people?
called the Thriver Community. And if you go to my website, drnae.com, you can learn all about it. And I have so many free resources on my website.
Mm,
And so it's just great. I have assessments, pathological lover assessment, a trauma bond assessment, personality trait assessment. And
wow.
yeah, it's really important to know yourself and just go have fun.
You know, and I will say that, and in all the research I've done on trauma, and I've done a lot, one theme that keeps coming back is that how learning about your trauma is such a superpower. And I found that to be true for me. And what
Yes.
it did for me is it helped me to understand myself and understand my behaviors,
Ex-
right? And separated me from those behaviors because that shame from the behaviors was so deep, so deep. And
Yeah,
once I understood, oh, I behave like that from the trauma, and
right.
I started my healing, oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how liberating that is.
Yeah, because you've been conditioned, you know, relational trauma means that you've been conditioned and you're having a trauma response. So once you understand what your specific trauma responses are, whether it's freeze, flight, you know, fix, fight, like it's important to learn all these things,
Yeah.
how whatever language, you know, we choose to use, right? Because there's all different languages, and to learn about trauma, find one that resonates with you, and then you can separate yourself from it, and then you make a choice. Do I
Hmm.
really want to behave like that? Probably not. Let me make
Yeah,
a conscious, authentic choice. And then your whole life starts to change.
it totally does. I had walked through a trigger for the first time a couple of years ago where it almost felt like I was an out of body experience. And I went through the whole thing and I figured out the root reason why I was triggered. And it was so empowering. And that it was difficult to go through, but it was really empowering because it showed me for the first time me being full on triggered and what I wanted to do, but I did the right thing.
Yeah.
I made the right choice, but it gave me that space to be able to go, okay, I don't want to react like that. What other way is there to react?
Yeah, and that's what it means to be empowered because power is simply the ability to influence. And so now you're able to influence yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't have that shame.
Yeah, and then the shame goes away. Yeah.
And then I could even share that story with the people in my family, and, and they understood, and they were, enlightened, I guess, and understood me better, I guess is a better
Yes.
way to put it. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I always ask this one last question for all my guests. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
What I would like to leave you with is that if you're listening to this and any of this resonates, that's okay. Don't be afraid. That just means like you're waking up your consciousness, you're waking yourself up to something that needs to be handled, and that as humans, we are incredibly resilient. I mean, look at all the stuff I've gone through, right? So just put one foot in front of the other, start to get educated, start to learn, and healing is not, it's not linear. It's one step forward, two step back, one step forward, two step back, but just keep going because I promise it's within your reach.
Dr. Nate, thank you so much. I appreciate all that you've done, and you've really made beauty from ashes. And I see this so often, and I just admire women who do that, who take their life and turn around and help others. And so thank you so much for doing that. And thank you for sharing today.
Yeah, oh no, it's been my pleasure. And, the work that I do is super fulfilling. So
Hmm.
it's a gift to me as well, and
Yeah.
really blessed that I get to do it. And, um, if you want to just come visit me at the Real Dr. Nadine on Instagram, please do. I'm always in the direct messages answering them. And thank you again for having me.
Yeah, all that'll be in the show notes. So if you want to reach out to Dr. Nay, we'll have all that information, and yeah, take advantage of those free resources, and even your trauma, your group. I mean, the Trauma Bond group.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. But we do need that. I'm doing something similar on the healing side with women, that I'm creating a
Cool.
group too, and yeah, we need that support. We need to support each other. So,
We do. We do. Well, thank you.
well, thank you.